This is Brian with ScreenFiles.com and Review. What I'm looking at today is 2017's Flatliners, a reboot of the 1999 movie. And this was probably one of the hardest reviews I've done because Flatliners, the original Joel Schumacher directed movie, has the potential, it didn't live up to this potential, but it had the potential to be such a profound, remarkable movie. Why is that? Well, because if you recall the original movie, it revolved around a group of medical students who were trying to discover if there were life after death. And they did this by killing themselves under medical conditions for, let's say, 3 to 4 minutes, no more than 4, if I recall. Because you have brain death, and if you have brain death, that means the brain is being choked of oxygen. When they did these experiments, something came back with them. Now, Flatliners isn't about ghosts or demons or any of that stuff. It's about, well, it is about ghosts, but ghosts of the psyche, ghosts of the mind, in that when you died and came back in that movie, you would be haunted by things you had done wrong. In other words, the ghosts are guilt and pain and shame, and these are the things you bring back with you. This is an interesting premise for a movie, and I've always liked it. Though the thing is, the movie is a very odd conundrum for me because we are formed of our experiences. We are an accumulation of what we see, what we hear, what we experience, in every sense of the word, is who we are. You take away those experiences, you're left with someone else entirely. So the idea that these students would die and come back somehow haunted by a past regret is it's an odd concept because, as I said, we are what we experience. So I've always had difficulty with the underlying concept of the movie. As a movie, it was fine. It was a product of the times, though, which is to say it didn't age very well. So flash forward to 2017. Flatliners was rebooted. And I think the reboot is better than the original for a lot of reasons. One reason being is that the actors, while attractive, they're not some of the biggest stars of their time. Therefore, the movie seems less precious. The shooting of it itself is less hazy, less gauzy and blurry, so it looks better as a movie. The 2017 reboot actually makes a change from the original as far as that initial concept, which is important to mention. In the 2017 movie, when people died for 2 or 3 minutes, they came back with a benefit. As in, one character, I believe, had a prodigious memory, had recalled from all sorts of points in their history. So there was more of a reason to do it. In the original movie, the medical students were conducting these experiments for experiment. There was no real gain to it beyond knowledge. While in 2017, there was an actual tactile benefit for doing this. Beyond the medical knowledge, they received enhanced abilities, like X-Men. Well, that's exaggerated. Maybe Professor X-ish? So that makes a lot of sense. The motivation to die, no matter how short a period of time, would have to be pretty strong. The first movie lacked that. The reboot gave them a reason to do this beyond science, and that was welcome. The thing is, though, while the 2017 movie is better than the original, which is a rare thing, it still runs into the central problem of the original movie, namely that it ignores the cumulative effect of experience. Each of the characters who underwent the experiment came back reliving a particular trauma in their lives, something that they didn't like themselves for. But see, that's the thing. It's just not a logical approach for the lack of a better explanation, because whether you're a good or not so good person, those experiences help form who you are. You don't forget them, you carry them with you. And in that context, the movie doesn't make sense. For instance, the actress who looks depressed half the time, her name's eluding me right now, but she had an experience of driving a car with a young person and having that young person die due to an auto accident. So she clearly carries the guilt of that experience with her. It's present. It doesn't go away. So she dies and it becomes manifest. See, this is part of the problem, I think, of the writing, in that you don't know if she's carrying that experience. I would assume she would, myself. I mean, just because you don't talk about it doesn't mean you've forgotten it either. And it was, after all, a car she was driving which killed this young girl. So the idea that she feels guilty about the experience, like, no kidding, duh. But does that mean that you want to kill yourself? So keep in mind, as I said earlier, there are no ghosts, no ghouls, none of that stuff in Flatliners. You have manifestations of guilt, of pain, of shame. These are the things people are seeing after they come back. So that she is killed doesn't really make sense. Because, now follow me here. As I already said, the characters are experiencing their own fears and doubts made manifest. So if she hadn't killed herself before, why would she kill herself then? I was about to say, therefore they can't kill you, but no, actually no, that's perfectly fine. Because I was thinking there's another character who got this lady pregnant and was supposed to take her to get an abortion, and instead he just kind of ditched her entirely. Now, he became haunted by her, and at one point she stabs him in the hand, and he comes to meet the other people, and he shows his hand wrapped in bandages. But that doesn't necessarily mean that he was actually stabbed. Once again, a physical manifestation of internal trauma. So therefore, he hurt himself. He manifested a wound. Stigmata. It's the same concept. So the idea that he disliked himself based on what he did to that woman makes sense. But once again, it's something he always carried with him. Whether he talked about it or not, whether he acted with bravado or with depression or sadness, he still carried it with him. It doesn't go away, which makes the movie more confusing. And I wish that it had taken a stronger stand on these manifestations, in that if there had been actual physical things brought forward from their psyche, that would have been a little easier to deal with. But instead, they were just hallucinations. They were just imaginings. And when you look at it that way, it's a little underwhelming. That being said, Flatliners 2017 is a better movie than the original version, and surprisingly effective at times. Though, if it had taken its concept a little further, in that these manifestations of pain, manifestations of guilt, manifestations of trauma, had instead taken on more of a life of their own, it probably would have been a more interesting movie. This is Brian with ScreenFiles.com and Reviews.